So, for my assignment, I decided to go on over to the Cincinnati Children's Museum and take some pictures of the old Cincinnati Union Terminal. Growing up, I used to visit this museum every now and then, and I always thought it was one of the more fascinating pieces of Cincinnati history because it used to be a train station, and I always felt that was super cool. And I even learned a few things on my journey over to the train station that I was not aware about before I did this assignment, like its connections to World War II and the Holocaust and the floodings from the Ohio River that pretty much created the train station, created the need for a train station. Um, so, yeah. This is the front of the museum. The parking lot faces this right here. So you walk up this path, and then the doors are right on over here. There's a little Ohio historical landmark marker here with some information on the museum. There's a big fountain. These are the standards that I will be connecting this to. OAE number 3, demonstrate knowledge of major developments in Ohio history from 1920 to the present. Social and cultural conflict during the 1920s, Great Depression, the New Deal, Ohio and World War II, civil rights movements, the Kent State shootings, et cetera, et cetera. And then Ohio, grade 4, standard 14, Ohio's land location and its transportation system continue to influence the movement of people, products, and ideas in the United States. So right here is the historical landmarker I was referring to earlier. Um, you could pause the documentary and take a look at that if you are looking for any more information. Um, 34,000 people traveling through the building daily in 1944, and then as part of the preservation efforts, 14 mosaics depicting Cincinnati industry of the 1930s were saved from the concourse and moved to the greater Cincinnati airport. I've actually seen these before when I've gone to the airport. They're really cool. The restored Union Terminal became a museum center in November 1990 with the opening of the renovated Cincinnati Museum of History and new Cincinnati History Museum. It is one of the most outstanding examples of Art Deco train stations in the nation and was listed on National Register of Historic Places in 1972. So, just some interesting tidbits about the museum. So right here is where outgoing taxis and motor coaches, like people would go for that, and incoming taxis and motor coaches, kind of similar, like to like an airport almost, but it's like a train station. No longer are like this is where you go for taxis and motor coaches. Obviously, like these are now like the actual museum entrances. As you can see, Museum of Natural History and Science right here, and then I believe this is where the Cincinnati History Museum entrance is. The Omnimax Theater they built, Robert D. Linder, actually a UC guy himself. This is the lobby. Right here's where people used to get their tickets and stuff, and now this is where they get their tickets for the museum. As you can see, two trains, just old remnants of the train station that has been preserved. Uh, Here are some murals that I thought were cool. Um, Kind of depicting like the working class people of like Cincinnati and Ohio. Like as you can see, you've got some people working on a building here. You've got some farmers. You've got Native Americans. These people right here are building a railroad. In the back, you can see people, making their way out west, possibly. Just the movement of people, and this kind of connects back to these standards we were referring to at the beginning, and how like Ohio's location, its transportation system influenced the movement of people and products and ideas in the United States based on where Ohio was, and our transportation systems like our railroads, the train station really moved people through the U.S. almost like a blood like a vein of blood. So I thought that was pretty cool. So more murals just depicting the working class and in various different peoples. This right here is one of the cooler things that I found while I was there. I didn't realize this, but they have these sculptures. They call them Arrival. You can visit the Holocaust and Humanity Center to learn more about the stories, but the sculptures represent refugees and survivors and soldiers that had traveled through the concourse during the years surrounding the Holocaust and World War II. That's where we come back to this standard right here. Major developments in Ohio history, like the World War II, had a significant impact on specifically like this train station, and it literally had people coming from Europe, trying to get away from the war. Um, so I thought that was interesting. During the midst of planning, actually, World War One and the Depression of 1920 to 1921 interrupted efforts to create the Union Station. An agreement for a Union Station among the seven railroads that served Cincinnati and the city itself was not achieved until July 1927. It was not a very popular train station through much of the 1920s and into the 30s. By 1939, local newspapers were already describing the station as a white elephant. While it had a brief revival in the 1940s because of World War II, it declined in use through the 50s and 60s as passengers had taken to affordable individual automobiles and airplanes for long distance travel. And then in the late 1950s, the Union Terminal Company began searching for other uses for the building. Train service decreased from 51 per day in 1953 to 24 per day in 1962, and then in July of 1963, proposals for the space were made. Eventually, it was proposed that they turned it into a museum because in the early 80s, the Cincinnati Historical Society and Cincinnati Museum of Natural History began to search for larger spaces. They eventually decided to join in accompanying space in the Union Terminal to fund the necessary renovations. Hamilton County voters approved a $33 million bond levy in May of 1986. Other funding came from the state Ohio, 8 million, and the city of Cincinnati. Um, this is just the train concourse in 1933. Like as you can see, it looks a lot different than right here. It's completely different. This was the structural framing of the actual building itself during construction. I mean, just look at I mean, wow. I just find this to be so cool. Then in July of 2016, the museum shut down for a $200 million renovation. In July of 2018, Amtrak stopped staffing 15 of its stations, including Cincinnati, since the completion of the renovation project. Amtrak allows customers to check bags trainside. The building and museum center had their reopening ceremony on November 17th. And these are my references. And just going back to the standards, like just the train station has so much history in terms of like the people that passed through it, specifically in the years surrounding World War II and the Holocaust. I just feel like that was a really, really important part. And then it's just the influence of the movement of people and products and ideas across the United States that this had, like the impact it had, is truly astonishing.